There's a government office in a building most people drive past without a second glance. Fluorescent lights, a few worn desks, and a wall of filing cabinets nobody has opened in years. On the frosted glass door, in fading black lettering, is a job title almost nobody in America could define if you asked them: weights and measures. For most of the last century, this office had a highly specific, critical job. Someone from inside that room would walk, unannounced, into grocery stores, gas stations, and meat markets. They carried certified test weights to check whether the numbers on the scales matched reality. They ensured the deli scale was honest, the gas pump gave a full gallon, and the price on the shelf was the price you paid at the register. It was one of the most quietly important jobs in the country, and most people never once thought about it, precisely because it worked. Today, in a lot of states, that entire office has been reduced to one person, sometimes two, a skeleton crew tasked with covering a jurisdiction containing thousands of massive retail locations. This isn't a story about one mislabeled package at one store. That story already happened, made headlines, and was quickly resolved with a polite apology and a refund. This is the story of the job that used to exist specifically so that kind of error could never happen in the first place, and what it means for all of us that the job has practically vanished. This documentary asks an uncomfortable question. When did America stop checking? Not stop caring. Stop checking in the literal, physical, boots-on-the-ground sense. Because somewhere in the last few decades, the entire foundation of retail quietly shifted from a system of active verification to a system of blind trust, and almost nobody voted on that shift, announced it, or even noticed it happening. By the end of this investigation, you will understand exactly how that shift occurred. You will see who has been forced to fill the gap it left behind, and you will realize why the answer to the question, who is responsible, is vastly more complex and strange than a simple corporate conspiracy. To understand how far we've drifted, you have to realize that this wasn't originally a minor bureaucratic footnote. It was written into the very DNA of the country. Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution gives Congress the explicit, fundamental power to fix the standard of weights and measures. The framers of the country placed this power right alongside the ability to coin money. They understood that an honest measurement was a core function of a functioning government, holding the exact same economic weight as the currency used to pay for it. For most of American history, this constitutional authority translated into a tangible, physical presence in daily commerce. Every state had a robust office. In many places, every county had a dedicated inspector. Scales in stores proudly displayed small metal seals, undeniable proof that a living, breathing human being had tested them and signed off. At state fairs, weights and measures booths were a standard attraction. Regular citizens would bring their own personal scales to get them checked for free. The cultural expectation was clear. Accuracy was a public service, not a private assumption. But then came the quiet defunding. Defunding a regulatory office is one of the least dramatic things a government can do. There are no press conferences. There are no fiery debates on the Senate floor. It's just a line item on a budget that shrinks a little every cycle, a retirement that never gets replaced, a position marked temporarily vacant that simply stays that way forever. Following the 2008 financial crisis, state governments slashed back-office regulatory functions, and nobody showed up to a budget hearing to fight for the Weights and Measures Office because its entire purpose was designed to be invisible. It only becomes visible the moment it completely fails. While the inspectors disappeared, the workload exploded. The sheer volume of pre-packaged products and new retail locations outpaced anything a 1970s inspection force was built to handle. a massive gap opened up in the system, and it wasn't a human who stepped in to fill it. Which brings us to a Walmart in Commerce, Georgia. On a routine shopping trip, a shopper named Marcus Webb picked up a sealed factory-fresh package of Kentucky Legend Honey Brown Sugar Ham. The label on the packaging was clear. It stated the weight was 4.93 pounds, with a price of $24.55. But the moment he picked it up, something felt immediately wrong. It sat too lightly in his hand for a package claiming to hold nearly 5 pounds of dense meat. Most people would have doubted themselves. They would have dropped the ham in their cart and kept walking. But Marcus walked over to the digital scale in the produce section. The open-access scale stores provide for customers to weigh loose fruits and vegetables. He set the sealed ham on the metal platter. The screen flickered, stabilized, and displayed a number: 1.83 pounds, not 4.93. 1.83. More than 3 full pounds of product that the label explicitly promised simply did not exist inside that plastic seal. Now, a single extreme error like this can be dismissed. It's a fluke, a bad batch, a machine misfiring on a Tuesday afternoon. But Marcus didn't just post a picture and walk away. He initiated a systematic test. He went back to different stores, on different days, checking entirely different batches of the exact same product. The second ham he tested was physically a different size. The label claimed 5.41 pounds. The scale read 2.32 pounds. The shortfall, exactly 3.09 pounds. A third package with different dimensions and a different labeled weight yielded a shortfall of exactly 3.1 pounds. This is the moment an isolated error turns into an architectural flaw. If this were a general quality control problem, the discrepancies would be chaotic. Some packages would be a few ounces under, others perfectly accurate, some maybe slightly over. But a gap locked at roughly 3.1 pounds, repeating identically across different sizes, at different locations, on different days. That is not random chance. Chance produces scattered results. What produces consistent, mathematically repeating results is a system running a flawed calculation, stamping a false reality onto thousands of packages and entirely failing to flag itself. And to prove it wasn't just a glitch in the meat processing plant, Marcus walked to a completely different section of the store. He picked up a package of Angus beef prime rib. Different brand, different product category, different supply chain entirely. The label read 4.64 pounds. Priced at nearly $15 per pound, this single package was priced well above $60. He placed it on the scale. It read 4.14 pounds, exactly half a pound short on the single most expensive item in the meat case. Before this discovery could be blamed on a faulty store scale, Marcus had already closed that loophole. Before testing any meat, he placed a certified 2-pound calibration weight directly onto the produce scale. The display read 2.02 pounds. The scale was off by 0.02 of a pound, a microscopic margin of error that actually worked in favor of the packages, meaning it would have made the meat look slightly heavier than it really was, not lighter. The scale wasn't lying. The system was. The question instantly mutated. It was no longer about one broken machine. It became a question about modern infrastructure. How does a piece of meat weighing less than 2 pounds receive a label claiming it weighs nearly 5, and then travel across the country through an entire multi-billion-dollar logistics network without a single checkpoint catching the error before it reaches a paying customer? To answer that, you have to break the fundamental illusion of the modern grocery store. Most people carry a subconscious assumption about how their food reaches them. They assume the meat sitting on the grocery store shelf was weighed and labeled that very morning, perhaps by an employee working in the back room with a digital scale and a label printer. That picture feels intuitive. It feels safe. It is also completely wrong. Here is the reality of the modern retail supply chain. At most major retailers today, the meat is weighed, portioned, packaged, and labeled at a massive automated processing facility operated by the supplier. In the case of the commerce anomaly, that facility was operated by Kentucky Legend. These factories are not attached to the back of a Walmart. They are vast industrial complexes located hundreds of miles away. The label, containing the weight, the calculated price per pound, and the total cost, is applied by an automated machine before the product ever leaves the building. From there, the sealed packages are loaded onto pallets and pushed into the distribution system. They travel to regional distribution centers, are sorted onto delivery trucks, and finally arrive at individual store locations in sealed cardboard cases. When those cases arrive at the store, the employees have one job: open the box and stock the shelf. They do not weigh the packages. There is no scale at the receiving dock to verify individual item weights. There is no secondary check built into the store-level process. The number on the label is locked in at a factory hundreds of miles away. This is the secret architecture of modern retail. The label is not a live, verified measurement. It is a memory. It is a number written down once, early in the process, and trusted unconditionally by every single person downstream of it. When you arrive at the checkout, the register doesn't weigh the package either. It simply reads the barcode, which contains the exact same unquestioned memory generated by a machine you have never seen. Nobody between that factory and your receipt verified the number was true. That is the gap. And when things go wrong inside that gap, it isn't an abstract logistical failure. It is a direct, quantifiable extraction of wealth from the consumer. To understand why the system failed so specifically in the commerce case, we have to look at the machines themselves. Industrial weighing equipment is miraculous. Dynamic check weighers can accurately weigh hundreds of packages a minute while they are physically moving down a belt, but they are entirely dependent on how they are calibrated. When meat is weighed, the machine must subtract the tare weight, the weight of the plastic tray, the absorbent pad, and the sealing film. If an automated system experiences a software glitch, a calibration drift, or a data entry error regarding the tare weight, it doesn't just make one mistake. A machine does not possess common sense. It doesn't look at a 1-pound piece of meat and think, that doesn't look like 5 pounds. It simply stamps the mathematically flawed reality onto the plastic 100 times a minute until a human being intervenes. But wait, what about the self-checkout? Self-checkout systems are actually loaded with highly sophisticated weight-sensing technology. There are incredibly sensitive scales built directly into the bagging area. They are explicitly designed to flag a transaction when the weight of the item placed in the bag doesn't match the expected weight in the database. So why didn't the self-checkout alarm trigger when a 1.8-pound ham was scanned as a 4.9-pound ham? Because that multi-million-dollar technology is calibrated to catch theft. It is designed to catch an item leaving the store that was never scanned, or an item that weighs more than what was rung up. It was never designed or programmed to ask the opposite question: is the store charging you for weight that isn't there? The most advanced piece of verification equipment in the entire modern grocery store is pointed in exactly the wrong direction to catch this specific problem. Automation didn't remove human error from the system. It simply removed the human who used to catch the error. Let's run the actual math on what slipped through that blind spot, because the numbers are concrete. The label on Marcus's first ham stated 4.93 pounds at a price of $4.98 per pound. The total at checkout was $24.50. The actual weight of the food in that package was 1.83 pounds. The real true value of that meat was $9.11. The difference, $15.44. That is $15 gone on a single item, on a single shopping trip, picked up in good faith and paid for without a second thought. Now scale it up. Imagine you are shopping for a family cookout or a holiday dinner, and you buy 6 packages of ham. Based on this exact discrepancy, you would have walked out of that store having paid more than $90 for products that only delivered around $55 of actual food. That is not a rounding error. That is a week's worth of groceries for a small family, paid for at the register, but never actually received. Walmart operates more than 4,600 stores across the United States. They serve tens of millions of customers every single day. If a single mislabeled shipment containing thousands of packages bypassed the blind spots and reached store shelves nationally, the total amount quietly extracted from consumers could instantly reach hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that raises a deeply uncomfortable financial question, a question no one at the store level could answer. When a massive retailer like Walmart buys products from a supplier, they typically pay based on the actual physical weight of the cases delivered to the distribution center. Imagine a sealed cardboard case arrives at the distribution dock containing 6 of these mislabeled hams. Each individual package carries an inflated label, but the distribution center weighs the entire case as a single unit to calculate the payment to the supplier. Walmart pays Kentucky Legend for the true, correct weight of the pallet. Those packages are then broken out and placed on the store shelves, and each one is sold to a consumer at the inflated price printed on the label. If that standard logistical sequence held true here, the supplier was paid correctly, but the consumer was charged incorrectly. So where does the financial difference actually go? To be absolutely clear, this sequence is a hypothesis of standard supply chain mechanics. There is no public accounting evidence confirming deliberate corporate orchestration. But while there is no proof of a national conspiracy, the public legal record paints a fascinating picture of recurring systemic failure. Between 2018 and 2024, Walmart paid a staggering $45 million to settle a class action lawsuit. The allegations? Overcharging consumers for pre-packaged meat, poultry, seafood, and weighted produce items. In August of 2025, a completely separate case in California concluded with a $5.64 million settlement. Prosecutors there found that multiple food products on Walmart shelves possessed actual weights lower than their stated labels. 2 massive settlements, different years, different states, the exact same core category of problem: pre-packaged food, stated weights, and the profitable gap between them. A settlement is not a legal admission of intentional wrongdoing, but it answers one vital question. If what Marcus Webb found in Commerce, Georgia was truly a once-in-a-generation manufacturing fluke, an isolated bad batch with no broader history, why does the public record include multiple 8- and 9-figure legal resolutions regarding the exact same discrepancy? If this has been happening across different stores and different years, why isn't it front-page news every single day? Why aren't complaint lines ringing off the hook? Because the modern retail system is built on a psychological foundation of cognitive overload. You walk into a grocery store carrying the weight of a full day. You are managing a job, a family, a tight budget, and a ticking clock. You are not a food scientist, and you are not carrying calibrated measurement equipment. You trust what the label says, not because you are naive, but because the entire modern transactional economy collapses if you don't. Trust isn't a personal choice. It's the mandatory currency that makes the transaction possible. When a shortfall is £3, someone might notice. But what if the shortfall is just 3 ounces? A few missing ounces on a package of chicken is invisible money. It falls below the human threshold of noticeability. It is too small for a tired shopper to detect, let alone dispute or feel angry about. But when you multiply that invisible 3-ounce shortfall across millions of transactions a day, across thousands of stores, over years, it transforms into an ocean of phantom revenue. And even when someone does get home, unpacks their groceries, and realizes something feels light, What happens next? Almost nothing. They have no idea a state weights and measures agency even exists. The reporting system is functionally invisible to the public. They assume it was a one-off mistake, or worse, they quietly assume they simply misread the label themselves. The silence from the public isn't proof that the system is working perfectly. It's proof that the mechanism for detecting the failure has been successfully offloaded from the government, bypassed by the corporation, and hidden from the consumer. This blind spot becomes even more glaring when you compare it to what the retail industry actually chooses to see. Over the past decade, retail giants have invested billions of dollars into technology designed to prevent one very specific type of financial loss: shoplifting. Stores are outfitted with AI-powered surveillance cameras that blanket the ceiling. Behavior recognition systems track unusual movement patterns in real time. Self-checkout algorithms will freeze a screen and flash a red light if a scanner is skipped on a $4 item. These systems are breathtakingly precise. They are continuously updated, aggressively maintained, and heavily invested in. Yet the system that was supposed to protect the consumer from a $15 overcharge, in the Commerce, Georgia case, that system was a single shopper who had a gut feeling, abandoned his cart, and walked a ham over to a produce scale. That is not a minor oversight. That is a fundamental structural imbalance in where technology investment goes and who that technology is designed to protect. The retailer possesses godlike omniscience when protecting its own inventory, but remains comfortably blind when a supplier's machine prints an inflated label. When the retailer removed store-level human employees to cut costs, they didn't just lose staff. They lost a vital layer of intuition. A human stocking shelves every day develops a physical instinct. They handle thousands of packages. They can physically feel when a 5-pound ham only weighs 2 pounds. A machine doesn't have an instinct. It repeats the error at full speed, at full volume, until a human being external to the system forces it to stop, and that external force has finally arrived. Marcus Webb didn't just upload his video to the internet immediately. He took his findings straight to the customer service desk and asked for the store manager. The manager came out. A ham package was placed on the store's own official equipment at the service counter. The label said more than 5 pounds. The store scale showed approximately 2.3 pounds, 2 separate scales in 2 different locations, showing the exact same systemic failure. The manager wasn't running a PR playbook. He showed genuine surprise. He confirmed he had no prior knowledge of the $45 million settlement. Most importantly, he confirmed on camera that there was absolutely no routine process in place at his location to reweigh incoming shipments. The labels were trusted unconditionally. The manager pulled the remaining inventory off the floor, voided them in the system, and escalated the issue. When the video finally hit social media, it exploded. Millions of views across platforms. Cornered by the viral evidence, Kentucky Legend released a formal statement. They confirmed the labeling error affected a specific batch of honey brown sugar ham sold in Commerce. They blamed a machinery malfunction during a brief production window, promised new quality control measures, and offered refunds. Walmart issued their own statement, confirming the batch was removed and refunds were available. Viewed in isolation, the system responded exactly as it should, but it had to be forced. The response wasn't triggered by an internal corporate audit. It wasn't caught by a supply chain alert or a distribution center checkpoint. It was caught by a single citizen, and Marcus is no longer alone. Across different cities, in different states, at different retail chains entirely, a completely uncoordinated grassroots auditing system has spontaneously emerged. Ordinary shoppers are bringing $20 digital kitchen scales into grocery aisles. They are filming themselves weighing pre-packaged meat, bagged produce, and sealed snacks. It has become a recognizable, recurring behavior online. These citizens are doing the unpaid, unofficial version of the exact job the government used to fund. The regulatory standard known as NIST Handbook 133 explicitly outlines how pre-packaged goods are supposed to be weighed, verified, and evaluated against strict legal tolerances. Lawmakers created this framework precisely because they knew consumers had no practical way to verify a sealed package themselves. But a regulatory standard that isn't actively enforced across a supply chain processing millions of packages a day is just words on a page. It provides a framework that works only when applied, leaving a massive gap when it isn't. And when a gap in the system exists, it gets filled quietly, invisibly, by the person paying at the register. This isn't just about Walmart or Kentucky Legend or one town in Georgia. The story here is structural. If a label is generated at a supplier's facility hundreds of miles away, and the money is collected at the retailer's automated checkout, and no point between those two locations systematically verifies the truth of that label, then the entire risk is placed squarely on the shoulders of the consumer. Every consumer who trusts the label absorbs the full financial consequence of an error they had no way to see coming and no opportunity to stop. This is not a fair distribution of risk. Retail isn't moving backward. The future is hurtling toward even more automation, more centralized pricing software, more complex logistics networks where products travel thousands of miles before a human hand ever touches them. Every single one of these technological advancements widens the detection gap. There are only two paths forward from here. Path 1. State and federal governments wake up. Consumer protection budgets are restored, and modern weights and measures divisions are built to aggressively match the terrifying scale of 21st century retail. Verification becomes a funded, professional reality again. Path 2. The citizen inspector pattern becomes permanent. An informal, decentralized network of ordinary people armed with cheap digital scales and smartphone cameras becomes the permanent, unpaid replacement for a system the country quietly abandoned decades ago. Neither path is guaranteed, but one of them is already happening in the aisles of your local store. Independent inspections show that the large majority of pre-packaged products do fall within acceptable legal weight tolerances. Most packages you buy are accurate, but most was never the standard consumers agreed to when they handed over their money. The standard was all of them. A product label is a written commitment from the seller to the buyer. When the label claims £5 and the package holds less than 2, that commitment is broken before you even walk through the sliding glass doors. A refund check doesn't fix that. A corporate press release doesn't erase it. What remains is a new, uncomfortable hesitation. That small, quiet doubt sitting in the back of your mind on every future grocery trip. The sudden, jarring realization that you don't actually know if the number on the sticker is real. The entire multi-trillion-dollar retail system operates on trust, but trust isn't guaranteed. It is earned, one accurate label at a time. And the only real question left is whether the system is willing to do what it takes to deserve it.